Illinois Regional Social Services. Mike is a mental health clinician, a behavioral health clinician, and he also was a crisis clinician.
What can you tell me about yourselves in that respect?
I'll go first. My name's Beth Vinta. I'm the program developer for the COVID-19 long haul program. We assist individuals in the community who present with COVID long haul, identify as having COVID long haul. I help a lot with Social Security disability paperwork and doctor advocacy, information referral to long haul clinics, and my consumers are mostly women in their, I would say.
I've been here about a year and a half now, and I work mostly in the lower 7 counties. Doug
Isn't here.
isn't here.
Doug and I know each other well.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
He does the upper 6 or 7 counties, and yeah,
Okay.
it's a good program.
All right. And how many people besides Lisa and Doug serve that
That's
one? Okay. All right.
Another 2-man crew is Johnny and I. We serve our homeless
And you
population.
are?
I'm the other Lisa, the Carbondale Lisa.
Okay. Okay. I'll never remember.
Sometimes I get calls for this Lisa.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So
But we serve our homelessness program, helping people either, you know, it might be with a down payment to get into, or, you know, maybe not called a down payment, but move-in fees, or maybe furniture if they have the move-in fees, or back housing bills, stuff like that.
Okay.
And we both do a little bit other things outside of that program, but that's probably our main focus.
Okay. Next. Eddie?
Yeah, I'm Johnny Rocky, and I work with our partners in the ARPA program, the American Rescue Plan Act, and that's what gave us funding to serve the homeless population. And then we do a little bit of independent living specialist work also, and then I'm also, and that's like the peer counseling, our basic services that we offer, and like independent living skills, transitions, information, and referrals, and then also provide transportation.
Okay. Other roles?
I do the same thing with
Okay.
independent living specialist, not the ARPA. Cameron and I work out here doing that also.
Okay.
Maybe we should just do a round of hands. How many independent living specialists do we have? There
Okay.
you go.
All right. I suppose that's why it's called the Center for Independent Living.
Yes.
Yeah.
We got another program here in the corner. You, Dan.
My name's Matt Fred. I'm the PA coordinator here. I serve basically all the southern counties. I field calls for individuals that are with the home service program and need personal care attendants, and I try to bring in new names, people that want to be PAs for our database. Do trainings for them. We've got a couple of people that help me with the trainings. And I field all kinds of line hours, so I never know what I'm going to come across with those.
Okay.
And then Teresa.
I'm Teresa Haley. I'm the community reintegration specialist, independent living specialist.
Okay.
I work with consumers who live in long-term care and they want to return to the community. It's through a grant through the state as well to help with any barriers that prevent them from returning to the community, and then helping them find and secure housing.
Okay. All right.
And then Kevin.
Kevin, I'm the SICIL advocate, and I basically liaise with everybody outside of the place.
Go around and do whatever it is that
Okay.
I need, or system needs for me to do.
Okay.
Barb, can you talk about Fast Track for a minute?
Yeah, I was getting ready to go there.
My name is Barbara Anderson. There's several of us in here that work with the students between the ages of 14 to 21 in the schools and out of schools. And we have a curriculum that we go by to help them with transitioning. Because they're going to go through these different stages of transition. So quite a few of us work with Fast Track.
Okay. Good.
There nutshell. Did we miss anybody?
Is that everybody?
I
Okay.
think it's everybody.
All
Well, me
right.
and Kathy do the same thing.
Mhm.
She does IL, we do fast track.
Okay.
Or I do fast track.
The only
but we
other-
do it together.
Yeah, the only other thing that might be germane is that we have actually 4 centers, 4 locations. So we have the Carbondale location now, which you're familiar with. Then, these 2 and Kevin and Lisa operate out of our Metropolis office.
Oh, okay.
And then Cassie
Did not
in the
know you
black
were
and
branched out.
Katrina, yeah, Cassie in the black and Katrina in the pink.
Uh-huh.
They are occupying space in Caro that we share with Chessie,
Okay.
which is an FQHC.
Yeah,
And then Vicky and Sue over here operate our Harrisburg office.
okay. So you're spread out now.
Yeah.
Wow, cool. Well, let me ask then, just by show of hands or something, who has ever heard of motivational interviewing? Okay, so how would you rate your level of knowledge of motivational interviewing? Novice,
I would say I'm a novice.
medium, high, what do you think?
I remember studying it in school, but it's been a while, so.
Okay. What can you tell me about what the most important thing you remember about what you know about motivational interviewing?
That we're gonna learn a lot about it today.
There we are. It's not coming to mind now, then we're gonna try to put it in mind.
It is a little early and
Yeah, well, it's that. It's a complicated subject. Don't? Okay. I will tell you that my sister-in-law is a clinical psychologist teaching at the University of North Carolina, and she does a semester-long course in different treatment modalities, and she does 3 weeks on motivational interviewing. And so everybody gets a chance to do a lot of practice, role play, etc. We're doing quick and dirty today. So, but the first thing that I think is important to know is motivational interviewing is not a counseling modality or intervention modality. It's not CBT, it's not ART, it's none of that. What it is a relationship style. As a relationship style, what people say most often is it plays well with others. That is, if you learn to relate to your clients or consumers, whatever word you're using nowadays, I've gone for clients, consumers, patients, whatever. If you learn to relate to them in this interpersonal way, you can do it within the boundaries and confines of cognitive behavioral therapy. You can do it within the confines of rational emotive therapy. It just plays well with others. It's about your relationship with your client, how you speak to them, how you listen to them. And that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about today. So, the first thing that it's important to know is that this was developed by a couple of guys named Miller and Rolnick, William Miller and Stephen Rolnick, and they based all of their efforts on research in the process of change. The change process was thoroughly researched by 2 guys, Prochaska and DiClemente, and I can't remember their first names. But the idea here is that it's implied in all the contemporary models of case management and counseling and other treatments that you are effective agents of change. You're helping people change. So the questions for yourself to think about are, do you believe you can influence change? Okay? What do you think motivates people to change? And what do you do to motivate people to change? So what are your thoughts about those three questions? Can you influence someone to change?
Definitely.
Definitely. Okay, good answer. Can you determine what's motivating someone to change?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What do you find are, well, let me put it this way. One of the things that we'll talk about today is sort of one single barrier that a lot of us face with our clients, and it's motivation. Low motivation, high motivation. How do you tell whether a person is poorly motivated? What do you hear and see from them that makes you think there's no motivation going on here? How do you know?
No direct statements really about what you're trying to, maybe discuss, like maybe if it's a job or something around that. So no direct statements. It's usually very wishy-washy or round, or what if this doesn't happen, or what if this doesn't happen,
or the immediate feeling that they aren't able to accomplish something. Like, I can't do that.
I can't.
I can't. What makes you think I can? I can't do that.
Okay.
Not very excited.
Okay. Not animated.
Yeah.
They don't come in, people like us that just like
Tone.
talk with their hands and move.
Yeah.
They just sit.
Low energy.
Yeah, low energy, right. Okay.
They're waiting for you, for someone to be waiting for you to fix whatever it is.
Yeah,
The
fix
magic
this for me,
wand.
will you? Yeah, okay,
What do you want?
okay.
If we
All right.
had one, do you think we should sit
So what do you do to motivate that client? And what do you think has been some of the most successful things that you've done? Or they have done to motivate themselves? Kevin?
Well, the first thing is to build a relationship or rapport, and really get to know what their needs are, what they think their needs are,
Okay, good.
and how you might be able to affect some of those needs, positively or hopefully.
Okay,
Help them understand their strengths.
okay.
Provide praise when, like, even with small accomplishments, because it could give them the incentive to continue on those.
Good, good. You're all hitting nails on the head. That's really good. We're gonna take a look at these questions while I'm doing this and ask yourself, which of these things do I actually believe? Is there anything that I believe or don't believe up on this? And there's gonna be a couple more. All right, let's try this. Just kind of show of hands. Anybody that believes, even slightly, that when you meet a consumer, this person really ought to change.
I think it's always my first thought, got a little quiet first
Yeah,
thought.
it's
To be
there.
honest.
Yeah, in the back of your mind, it's you're a mess. You need to do something. Okay. How many people think right away the person is ready to change?
it's like 10%.
Sometimes.
Sometimes? What makes you think they're ready to change?
Their actions, the things that they're requesting, the things that they're telling me that they're going to do and that they show me that they're going to do.
Okay.
They're willing to do some of the legwork themselves.
Do you think they're ready to change just because they show up in your office?
No, they should
No.
come with a plan. If they're
Okay.
for change, they're coming with a plan.
Well, a lot of services
They
here
come
are
up
sought
with.
out as opposed to, like, individuals come to us specifically for these services, so.
Right.
You know.
Are they ever sent by someone else?
Yes.
Okay.
They might be really responsive to ideas that you have
Okay.
I feel like
and show interest.
the consumers that are most ready to change are the most honest.
Okay.
Honest about either what has led them here,
Mhm.
or just like, and kind of that plan of action, like,
Like they've
You know.
talked to.
Person's past really should be a motivator for change.
Yeah.
Confrontational, synonym group type
Oh my goodness.
with your patients, clients, or
I've
seen it even.
Yeah.
had to put like behavioral plans into place after behaviors of individuals who I'm servicing, like threatening behaviors or anything like that. And you have to be a little tough to put that in place, but I don't
Okay.
know if that works best.
The center philosophy is really driven by consumer choice.
Yes,
So, no, we don't do a lot of confrontational work here.
that's great, because research proves it really doesn't work. Scared straight programs, waste of money. It's not it. We can often be a little judgmental, including myself in this stages of my career. Now's the right time for this person to consider change, and why the heck don't you listen to me? I'm an expert. I've been doing this for 45 freaking years. Why can't you just pay attention? Well, okay, so somebody have a question?
And back to the independent living philosophy, am I the expert of my consumer and what their needs are and wants?
Yes and no. Here's what my guess is, not having worked in this business with these goals myself for any part of those 45 years, but what you know is systems, how to navigate them, how to move through them, what to do, how to get your consumers what they want and need. You can hear them about what they want and need and move in that direction, but how do you handle when they say, no, I don't want that? Wait a minute, this is what you told me. Wait a minute, this is the philosophy of our program. This is what we do, right? So that's a kind of like, why aren't you listening to me?
Well, it's one of those things too sometimes though, where you have to give your consumers their options about something, and hey, these are the options that are available to you right now. Here are these 3 things. Here's all the information about these 3 things. If you decide not to do one of those 3 things, that decision is on you. But
Yeah.
I gave you the options and told and the information about the options. You decide.
And that's okay. The only thing I'm gonna say, that's a caveat to that, is when you're working with your consumers, and we're gonna get to this, you want us to try to elicit what you can from them. Give me a list of what you think, blah, 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 blah. But when you're gonna give them options like that.
Well, that's after they've said what, like if someone.
Yeah, I understand. Once they have exhausted their ability to give you options, never just start blurring them out. Most important thing you can do is ask their permission. Do you mind if I add a few things to your list? Is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions? That's part of the relationship style. That's how you demystify yourself as the expert. How you join in battle with your consumer, right? We're on the same team. But you don't come from a place of superior. You say, do you mind? I got an opportunity here to maybe tell you a couple things, but if you don't want to hear them, that's okay. I don't mind.
Yeah.
Do you mind? So, here are some of the faulty assumptions about changing. Anyone can do it if they really want to because it's easy. And all you really need is willpower, resolve, strength of character. No. No. All of those things are kind of changeable. Some change is easy, some change is not. And willpower, resolve, strength of character, those are all not necessarily traits but states. The difference between traits is a personality trait, right? I'm a happy, gregarious guy. Well, States are, sometimes I'm angry. States change, and they change all the time. It's good for us to try to stay away from suggesting this is a trait of a person. Low motivation, or lack of willpower. Those are states. Change is not possible. You may hear your consumers say this. Nothing works. I've tried everything. And people don't change. I have heard people in our business before say things like, well, this is ridiculous. People don't change. Well, yes, they do, or why are we here? Okay, so motivation's not a trait. It's not only the person's problem. It's a complicated world. An entire pile of socio-biological, economic pressures are all over the place on this person. Lack of motivation is not why a person did poorly in the program. Motivation is a state. It's changeable. What you want to remember, as I said earlier, is sort of your Psych 101 course, the difference between a state and a trait. Traits are something we consider part of a person's personality, and a state is, it's changeable. I'm happy one minute, I'm angry the next. Motivation means you have a commitment that's directed towards some course of action, and something in which the client and the practitioner both play key roles. So it's part of what I was saying to your question about asking permission. You get on the same team. And it's a little bit of a trick to get on the same team with some consumers.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to follow this too. This is working. So, here's your reality sandwich. Change is difficult for most people most of the time. When people first come into your office for that first visit, you can hear things, see things that makes it seem this way, that they're ready now, but they may not be. They may be good at putting on dog and pony shows because they're doing what is socially acceptable or saying what they think you want to hear. It's difficult all the time, and the only people who welcome change are wet babies, according to Harvey Skinner. Okay. So I want you to try something here. I want you to give a little thought to the idea that Bonnie just came in and told you effective immediately your shift is changing from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. to 4 p.m. to midnight. Effective immediately, tomorrow. Okay? What's your gut reaction? In a few minutes, not even minutes, I'll give you a few seconds to think about this. Just rate yourself from 1 to 100, indicating how ready and willing you are to change. 100 means absolutely ready and willing. I'll be in at 4 tomorrow afternoon. 1 is take this job and
Oh, I like
all right. So who's between 1 and 25? That is really ready to do this. Change to 4. Okay. You guys would like to change.
My brain, I'm a night owly kind of person.
Oh,
Okay. And Kevin?
Yeah, I just have a flexible way about it.
Okay. All right, but that's 2 people in the room. All right,
Write that down.
who's between 25 and 50?
The young
John.
Lisa.
Lisa. What put you there?
like to sleep in, so at 4 o'clock, don't sound bad.
I know I'm gonna have to give in at some point, probably, because I don't plan on switching jobs just yet.
Okay. Who's between 50 and 75? Who's between 75 and 100? Oh, hell no.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so I'm gonna guess for most of you in here, there'd be some difficulty in making that change or a whole lot of trouble making that change.
I have difficulty with daylight savings time.
Well, here's something that's important for us as helping professionals. When consumers don't change, I'm messing this up. When consumers don't change, all right, we work too hard, we get burned out, we resent our consumers, which is not good for being on the same team. And that's not good relationship building. Other things about not. Change is not an all or nothing yes or no decision. Many of us feel two different ways about changing. That is the definition of ambivalence. Yeah, this change would be okay because I get to sleep till 4, but maybe not so good. My kids come home from school at 3, and it cuts down my time with my kids. That's ambivalence defined. Change is a process in which it's normal to feel that ambivalence. Recognizing that for your consumers is really important. So how you view ambivalence is going to determine how you react sometimes with some of your clients. That's, they're hemming and hawing and iffing and theming, and you're like, come on, I'm the expert, I just told you, would you get on board? So dealing with ambivalence is really important. Care to go first?
No.
Loudly, please.
Okay, so our stance was the consumer has a thing with people parking in the handicap parking. And they get furious. So they're explaining to the practitioner how angry they will get, like ready to fight. And so things happen with the law to change that. The practitioner understood and, verbalized understanding and explained the law that they'll have to deal with the consequences and encouraged the consumer to find ways to deal with that, which wouldn't get them locked up or hurt somebody. And I did a lot of laughing through it. And he was really into it. He feels strongly about this, and the practitioner understood that.
Well, as the practitioner argued more and more to just deal with it, if I can shorten it to that, how did the consumer respond? Did he escalate or de-escalate?
De-escalate. They talked about ways of positively dealing with it, like the laws that we just learned about, where he can take a picture when he believes someone is parked improperly. He also talked about there were times that they did have a sticker and he just didn't see it. They forgot to take it out. So now he's looking at both ends of it, and he sees it from both sides.
So you join more with your consumer in a problem-solving, team-building effort?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have a different experience? Yes, please.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So
the consumer wants to move, and the practitioner has found ways that she could move to a different city where it's affordable housing for her, there's transportation, and there's the same type of jobs that she does where she's at now that she can do, that she doesn't wanna move because she likes her job.
Okay. She wants to move, but doesn't wanna move.
Mhm.
So what did the practitioner suggest she do?
Well, they went round and round.
And
And it got escalated because she refused to move to this area. Maybe not, she still wants to move, but not to Carbondale.
practitioner was pressing for a move to that area.
Because it was benefit,
I felt strongly that she should move, right?
Okay, yeah.
and
That's what we did.
yeah.
All right, so this is more commonly what happens with ambivalence when there's not a team building effort. This is what you're gonna get most of the time. How did you guys do? Who was the observer?
I was the observer. Ours was a little silly because we were trying to think of something quickly. We did McChicken versus McDouble. And the clinician felt that it was, felt strongly that the McDouble was a better deal. Plus, you know, it's actually meat versus the McChicken. Who knows what's actually in that?
You brought that extra piece of cheese.
Okay, other observer.
Bonnie was the consumer and Sue was the practitioner. I was the observer. And Bonnie, the consumer's situation is she's trying to determine if she's ready to retire, if she should retire, does she want to retire? Well, she could be traveling more, she could be doing more at home, but yet she loves being here. So then Sue gave the advice of getting a advisor to talk to Bonnie to try to help her make some decisions, I guess get it all lined out. Bonnie kind of liked that idea, the consumer kind of agreed with that. I mean, I don't feel like she was against it.
Okay.
And so it's kind of,
All right.
yeah.
Okay.
I was the observer, and Joan was the client, and you were the practitioner, and he was the client, and we're discussing, Joan was saying that SHOAT needed to be closed down, and Matt was saying that we need the services of SHOAT, but we have to figure out how to get them to be serviceable and not at the level they are right now, and with all the problems that we've been reading about and the state coming down. And what I noticed though is that at the beginning, Matt was like, no, they need to stay open, and Joe was like, they should close, but they were able to come to like a concise agreement that we need to figure out a way, the services are absolutely needed, there needs to be a way for SHOAT to fit the mold of what the services need, and also have the practitioners and clinicians and mental health tests, all that good stuff. Yeah, super easy stuff that we could get done today.
All right. Is that everybody then?
Yes.
All the others?
No. So our consumer come in and she's decided that she wants nice things, but she doesn't want to work. She wants somebody to give this stuff to her. She doesn't want to work. And our practitioner gave her the options of what working could help her get. And so in the end, she was kind of convinced that she was going to try to get a job at Payless so she could get an employee discount and get some shoes.
All right. Okay, so you guys were too nice to each other.
They weren't.
Well, let me say more.
She wasn't nice, she told me I had to keep working.
Yeah. And how did that make you feel?
Yeah, I had pretty well decided that anyway.
Well, the idea is here is with your consumers and dealing with ambivalence, right? There are too many of us in here who are well trained, trying to be chill and trying to be persuasive. These are the more normal experiences with your consumers, all right? So ambivalence is like having a balloon full of water. And as soon as you as a practitioner start arguing hard for one side, you should do this, because I'm the expert and I know what's gonna happen. And you're not taking the time to say, what are the potential consequences of that? Or what are the pros and cons? Just do it. Then it's like squeezing a balloon full of water, and you send all the water to this side, and it pumps up. What your consumer then does, pump up like a balloon. Hell no!
Right.
So that is a part and parcel of learning to deal with ambivalence. Recognizing and knowing ambivalence is a normal part of change. You're going to get it from anyone and everyone, including yourself, as you talk in the mirror about some change. And how can you deal with it in a team-forming kind of way, which we had examples of in the room as well.
I think what Bonnie said too brings up a good point, that she had already come to that decision.
Right.
There's a lot of people that are gonna come and ask for your advice, but they've already made up their mind about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
But I
something.
liked your suggestion, I needed advice.
Yeah. Okay, so dealing with that ambivalence is like the balloon full of water. You press on one side, the other side expands. You actually have the ability to drive your client in the wrong direction if you're just taking that hard, confrontational, just do it kind of approach or stance with your client. When you explore the ambivalence, though, more on a team equal kind of basis, you both have a better understanding of the change process. And I think that today, more frequently than I've experienced in the past, actually, though, we had a good smattering of, some people really squeezed the balloon and the client showed that, and some people just worked with the ambivalence and explored it. Pros, cons, how do you do it? What are steps you could take, etc. So, let me see. So how you view ambivalence is important, and it determines a little bit about how you react and treat your clients. When you have some indicators of low motivation, these are the kinds of things you will see from your client. Okay? You'll see them and see that in their body language. You'll see it. You'll hear it in their expression, their verbal expression. They'll disagree with you. They'll refuse your advice. They'll express no desire or need for help or change. They appear unconcerned about a problem. Okay? Anybody have any other thoughts about things that you might see from a consumer that indicate low motivation?
I noticed and I know this is teenagers, but I noticed that there's a particular group of teenagers I have that have low motivation. You can just tell by the way they're not actively listening, they're not engaging, there's little eye contact.
Teenagers were my forte for 45 years. Teenagers. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Resistance. If we go back to this, yeah, how many of us used to label that resistance?
Label it?
Yeah, we just call it all of that we see from this client. What they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this. I'm not necessarily saying you tell your client they're being resistant. But I am saying, in your own mind, you start thinking, well, this is so much resistance from this client, this consumer. They're resistant. You go into supervision, they just won't do it. They're so resistant.
I think
Resistance
social
to change.
services like that, non-compliance.
Yes.
Non-compliant.
Non-compliant is the same thing as resistant, right? So, I want you to think about a paradigm shift, shifting your model. Think about their resistance differently. Their resistance is a reflection in the mirror. You're looking at a mirror of yourself as you look at your consumer. And what they're doing, when they're resisting, that's your signal. What I'm doing isn't getting the job done. I really need to do something else. So, I'm going to demonstrate a little something here. This is a brand new deck of cards. And I'm not even going to look at it. I'm going to do a card trick with you. And it's going to be sort of a metaphor for motivational interviewing, okay? So I have a deck of cards in my back pocket. In every deck of cards, there's 4 suits: spades, hearts, diamonds, and clubs, right? Pick 2. Who wants to do this one?
Hearts and spades.
Hearts and spades, okay. Of hearts and spades, pick 1.
Hearts.
Okay, hearts. In every suit, there are 3 different groups of cards. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, king, queen, jack, ace. Pick 2.
The first group and the last group.
Okay, that leaves the middle group. Okay? In the middle group is 6, 7, 8, 9. Pick 2.
8 and 9.
Okay. Of the 8 and 9, pick 1.
8.
Okay, that leaves 9, right? Okay, 9 hearts. 9 hearts is the card we're looking for.
Okay. 9 hearts.
How many cards do you want me to pull out of my back pocket before I pull out the 9 of hearts? And don't say 50.
10.
10? All right. 1. Oh! My mistake. Let me do this differently. I put the cards in wrong. Now you know the trick, I think, but never mind.
You just did it.
Well, I know, but 1, 2, 3. I told you I hadn't done this in 10 years. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I don't, still don't know how you did it.
But who knows how I did it?
I have no clue. I'm not a magic mystery.
You got it guided?
Well, I'm sorry?
Did you guide her toward that?
No. I chose these
By
two.
elimination, sort of?
You can do this trick right now yourself. Couldn't you?
No, not me.
I'll bet you could. I already knew that the 9 of hearts was on the bottom of the deck. I just put the bottom toward my outside of my pocket. I was supposed to put it towards the inside.
Yeah, but I could have chosen
8.
No.
They're in
Listen,
order.
I guided you every step of the way choosing the 9 of hearts.
Well, I want to see it again.
There are 3,
I could
there
have,
are 4 suits in every deck, right?
I could've
Spades, hearts,
chosen
diamonds,
jack.
and clubs.
clubs and diamonds.
Yeah, but you said hearts and spades, right? So all I had to do is say pick 1. If you said clubs and diamonds, I would have said that leaves.
Oh, and you would have moved.
Every time you pick the wrong thing, I said, that leaves, until you pick. All right, so this is sort of, I'm not suggesting you do tricks with your consumers or do chicanery, but the point is, notice how the approach does it all for you. I don't have to argue or fight with you.
Right.
I don't have to do, you know, it's like, okay, let's try going this way. Heather's my mirror. She picked the wrong thing. What'd you pick that for? That's really dumb. No. Okay, that leaves. Your consumer is your mirror. Watch them. We're all good at reading nonverbal communication too. How does it feel in your gut, what they just said or did, or the expression on their face? If it doesn't seem right, don't necessarily look to them to make the change. 15 minutes. So yeah, that's 11 o'clock. Let's wait till 11 and then take a pee break or something. Okay. So, yeah, we say to our clients a lot of times, you know, if you do what you always do, you get what you always got. Well, it applies to us too. So here's the case for motivational interviewing, right? Okay. So research. You can see all the researchers who did this stuff. Our expectations for client change have been shown to influence client compliance and outcome. And this happens almost subconsciously in our own minds. Once you get to this place, they're just not motivated. You know, your work falls off a little bit, and the clients fail in whatever we're trying to help them with. Some of them leave treatment with you. That's what the retention rate research is about by Miller. They don't feel like they're making progress. You don't feel like they're making progress. They just don't come back. And when assigned randomly to certain therapists, the outcomes differ substantially depending on the therapist to whom someone is assigned. So, by changing a therapeutic style between confrontational, remember we're talking about that confrontation is a boondoggle, it's been debunked, and client-centered, which you guys seem to do as exclusively as humanly possible, you can drive your resistance rates up and down. And that level of resistance is predictive of failure to change. So, with some relatively simple actions, that leaves, right? Follow-up notes or calls after a session as opposed to are you coming in tomorrow for your session? And oftentimes after the first session, you know, can double the probability that clients are going to return for further services. You know, we're not all counselors here, we're case managers, but we all must have good relationships with our consumers. So, therapist empathy, as defined by Carl Rogers, is associated with more favorable client outcomes. Empathy, who can define that for us?
Feeling what they're feeling.
Yeah, pretty much. Learning to walk in someone else's shoes. Different from sympathy. Oh, I'm sorry for your loss, etc. It's like, that must have been awful for you. I can't imagine how painful that was. So that empathy is associated with more favorable client outcomes. Predictable effects of confrontation found in research. Non-cooperation, eliciting the opposite in ambivalence, pushing the balloon, making it fatter at the other end. And reacting, assertion of autonomy. People don't follow my advice. It was because you told them what to do. And what you get in return is, I'm a grown-ass woman, damn it.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard that exact sentence.
I'm a grown-ass man, you don't tell me what to do. So that's what you're gonna get from confrontation. That's what you're gonna get in a situation where you encounter ambivalence and try to argue one side of it. And suggest to your consumer, I need you to do this. Okay. That's often what we call rebellion in teens, too, as a matter of fact. But there is one thing I want to tell you about confrontation. There is a place for confrontation. There's a place for confrontation in motivational interviewing as well. And the way that it's stated is that confrontation is not a style, but it is a goal of motivational interviewing. And here's how that works. You sometimes need to confront something in a consumer, but you cannot do that until you've built an incredibly strong relationship with that consumer. And even then, you have to tread very carefully. Do you mind if, for instance? Is it okay if I? So sometimes when I worked at Hill House here in Carbondale a million years ago, we called that carefrontation. Right? You gotta come from a caring space when you're doing confrontation. Your goal is to build a relationship that will withstand a gentle confrontation, that you will and be able to present, deal with the ambivalence, deal with the reaction, and come to some kind of consensus about what does it mean and where do we go from here. So that's all what it means to say that confrontation is not a style in motivational interviewing, but it's a goal. One of the things that I tell parents who are, when working with their teenagers, or kids of any age, because it's good to start when you're little, positive reinforcement. We all know that's the gold standard. People respond to positive stuff far more. Well, it's like a bank account. And there's actually a researched ratio. A positive interaction is a deposit in your account. A negative interaction or a consequence is a withdrawal. The ratio needs to be 4 to 1. 4 deposits to every withdrawal. And if you can get better than that, great. But try to be as positive as you can. And even in MI, with confrontation as a goal, you get to that one thing, you've got to be able to sort of practice the general approach with it. And often that starts with, well, do you mind if can I point something out? Ask, don't tell. I got so focused on this early in my career because I was really messing it up that I wrote that in my checkbook register way back when you couldn't bank online. I opened my checkbook and right there staring me in the face, I had written, ask, don't tell. Every time I opened my checkbook, I had to look at that until I got it. Okay.
think this is a lot applicable to our consumers that are adults, but I'm really keying in on this fast track applicability with our students and how we could put that into the real world for them about the 4 deposits and the 1 withdrawal. And what those 4 deposits would look like for a fast track student who's 14 to 21 with a disability. Varying ranges from, mild to moderate to severe. And they're teaching them all in the same space. I'm just having rambling thoughts at the moment, but it really, I feel like there's so much that's applicable there for you to kind of take away from that when you're in the moment. Because some of them are so unmotivated. We can't even get them to turn their packets in. We motivate them through food.
That's my dog.
Pavlov, right? I mean, for real.
All right, so we all have a challenge, First, recognizing ambivalence. What you're going to hear and see from your clients. I would like to do this, but I'm not sure because I like this too. You want to look for incentives, the benefits and rewards. What are our carrots? Not sticks. Look for disincentives, the obstacles, the barriers, and natural consequences. And try to identify contingencies. If then, if A happens, then B. Explore the positive and negative consequences that are meaningful for each client. So incidentally, as we're doing this, and we probably are just about coming on this break time, I gave everybody a packet. In fact, it's a little out of order. After Stephanie and Heather and I arduously put them together in an order, I went back home and realized the stuff I have on top for you guys I don't want on top. I want you looking at stages of change in the sort of thought process. We'll do that probably when we come back from break. And the last thing we'll look at here is motivation. Just what is motivation? Again, it's not a client attribute. It is not a trait, but an interpersonal process between you and your consumer. That team approach, that build the team. I am not one up from you. We are together. Okay? And a lot of research indicates that the interaction between you and your consumer powerfully influences resistance, compliance, and change. That's the summation of what we've been talking about for the last few minutes. Okay? If I did not give you in this packet a PowerPoint slide printout, of all the slides. You can do that here if you want, because Heather has it loaded on her computer and it's loaded on this TV, I believe, too. And you can set up to print it out, anybody that wants the PowerPoint.
I can email it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about what motivation is when we come back. So if you want to take about a 5-minute break, maybe 5 to 10, whatever.
We have 4 bathrooms and many women, so. That will be the.
No different than
the mark.
anyplace else I've ever worked. Here's just a quick look at where we left off, that what motivation is. It's a state readiness. First, you want to make determinations about whether your client is ready, willing, and able. And you do it with the 3 rulers, readiness rulers. Scale of 1 to 10. How willing, how important is it for you to make this change? To go from living at home with your parents to living independently. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being most important, where are you? How ready are you to do that? In terms of the priorities of your life right now, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? How able are you to do that? What is your confidence level in yourself to do this? Scale of 1 to 10. All right, so 10 is always as high as you can go. I am willing, I am ready, I am able. But you want to start working with your consumer in their low numbers. It shows you what you need to shore up before you actually start the nuts and bolts work. And often that can be done simply by asking, okay, so your confidence in your ability to do this is like only a 3. Can you think of anything that we might do together that would move you from 3 to 4? Again, little steps. Don't ask how you get from 3 to 10. 3 to 4. 3.5. And start building and start doing those little steps with your consumer before you even begin to attack. Okay, so how soon can you move out? Get those little bitty victories. Praise the heck out of them, a deposit in the bank, and keep moving, keep moving. And you can do that with every readiness ruler. Some people will have high scores on ready and willing, but not feel able. Some people may be low all the way around. You may have to do a lot of work just moving them to a place to be ready to change, to feel good about themselves and their ability to do this. Okay?
Do you have any questions about how you insert this into the process? When to insert it?
I think we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
We're a good place for it. Because we're going to talk first about meeting our challenges. What we need to do to understand what's called the trans-theoretical model of change. As I mentioned, the 5 stages of change. These were researched by people named Prochaska, Di Clemente, and Norcross in 1991. And they discovered in this research that the underlying process of change, it's neither technique oriented nor problem specific. Change is predictable. It moves through well-defined stages. People enter at different stages. Each stage does not inevitably lead to the next, and it's possible to get stuck or go backwards. Relapse is a normal part of the change process. You can influence movement by applying strategies that are effective at each stage, just like the card trick. What do? I look at my consumer as my mirror. Don't like that face. I need to do something else. Okay. So I also like to think of this process of change and its incorporation into the creation of motivational interviewing, as well as the trans-theoretical change model. I lost my train of thought. Oh, and it's sort of the age-old answer to the question, meet your consumer where they are. How many people heard that before? Where did you hear it?
Maybe out of places.
Classroom or something like that?
Yeah.
Like,
School,
well, yeah, what did it mean to you?
that well, for me personally, that regardless of where I believe the functionality of my consumer should be, I'm going to meet them where they are in hopes that we can build them up to that level of functionality.
Okay. So you're on a higher level than I ever was. I was always, meet them where they are. They spend a lot of time at Mickey D's. Am I supposed to go there and meet up with them for a session?
Hey, I've done treatment plans in Dunkin' Donuts.
No, I get it. I get it. But it was always kind of vague to me, so it seemed. And although I got to the place that you got to, this is even more solid to me, right? Because these are the stages of change. Out here, although not labeled, the entire universe of white, that's pre-contemplation. Not even thinking about it. Pre-contemplation means problem. What problem? There's nothing wrong here. I don't need your help. Well, how'd you get here? Well, they sent me. Well, who's they? I don't know. Could be the court, could be my parents, could be, who knows? But, okay. So this is where most people might enter the change process. From pre-contemplation to contemplation. Contemplation meaning, okay, now they're thinking about it. Okay, so meet your consumer where they are. That's the first step. Learn to identify where they are in this change process. And that may not happen at the first session, as we talked about it. It looks good, but it's not there. As they move to contemplation, what you're going to be listening for is identify where they are. Yeah, okay, why do I need that? Okay. You're going to be listening for that ambivalence. I'd like to do this. Yeah, I'd like this to be my goal, but I don't want to miss out on something else. During preparation and determination, you might hear, I know it's a problem, but I don't know how to change. And as we said, pre-contemplation, the universe outside of that, whole circular cycle is problem, what problem? The handout I gave you, as I said, if everybody's on this, as opposed to the front page where I put it, my bad. You'll notice in every stage, there's a definition of the stage and a primary task for you as a practitioner. And the next page is similar, but very concrete nuts and bolts of how you go about accomplishing your task. And it's there for every stage of this change process. And we're not actually going to go through that right now, nuts and bolts, step by step, because that's why I gave it to you, to try to shorten this. We don't have 3 weeks. So that's that. And again, identifying where the consumer is and assessing their readiness for change. Pre-contemplation, no intention to change in the foreseeable future. Unaware or underaware of their problems or any problems. You might hear from them, what problem? Shock at the suggestion of a problem. They don't recognize any costs. Again, negative consequences. think of costs as negative consequences? Don't know what they are talking about, they, whoever sent them, okay? I'm only doing this because I have to. They're making me do this. Incidentally, on this note, I'll mention that this was originally designed, invented, what's the word I want to use, but as a intervention, a treatment modality for substance abuse clients, addicts. The efficacy of this across all kinds of mental health situations and treatments has began to emerge, and it's used everywhere in a lot of different ways now. So when you I may still have stuff in here that says something about user, substance abuse, whatever, but it's pretty universal. And as I said earlier, that this is really plays well with all kinds of treatment modalities. Okay. So a client may get stuck here, still in pre-contemplation, and there's a few reasons for it. And the 4 R's is what explains that. Reluctance, some lack of knowledge, or just inertia, inability to change, inability or lack of desire to change. They're unaware of the impact of the problem, whatever it may be, on themselves, on other people especially though. And what you can do is your very best to provide feedback in an empathetic manner. Again, empathetic, team building, you and me. Okay? Rebellion, there's that grown-ass woman thing, grown-ass man thing, right? There's a heavy investment in problem behavior or autonomy. It may not even be the problem behavior, just skip right to the word autonomy. People feel like nobody tells you what to do. There's a whole lot of reasons why that may have developed over their lives, but they're stuck in it right now. Very important to them to be the driver of their own bus. Well, with just the right approach, you can probably help them still feel that way. That leaves. Okay. And it's important to recognize, as what I was just saying too, is that hostility may come from an insecurity or a fear, losing control. And what you can do is try to provide as many choices as you can. Again, a good team building approach is to ask them to make a list first. And if what you think could be on there isn't on there, ask. Do you mind if? Can I make a couple suggestions? So the next R is resignation. They are just beat down. Somebody was talking about when they come to the office and there's just no energy in what they're doing. So lack of energy appears like lack of investment in what's going on. They're just demoralized, situation is hopeless. I've tried everything, and they have no control. They give up on the possibility of change and seem overwhelmed by the problem. And your job is to do your best to instill some kind of hope and explore barriers to change. So resignation may be a problem with ability, reluctance, maybe readiness, rebellion, willingness. So you get low numbers, perhaps, if they're being honest, when you do the readiness rulers.
What's the fourth R? I'm so sorry. I have reluctance, rebellion, resignation,
Rationalization.
rationalization.
Rationalization, yes.
Thank you.
What do you think rationalization is? Ready, willing, or able? What's the problem there?
They're making up excuses.
Uh-huh. So,
They're not ready yet
They're
because
not
they
ready.
can explain every action that they're
Right.
doing with some kind of self-answer.
yeah, they're justifying it, right.
Yeah, they're justifying their actions
Yeah,
and not recognizing that consequence isn't always a bad word. There's good consequences and bad consequences to every
Right.
action.
they have all the answers. Problem's not a problem for them, but it is a problem for everybody around me. They just leave me alone. Everybody will be fine.
That can kind of be the grown woman man stuff
Man,
too.
yeah.
Like rationalizing, like I'm in control of my life. No one gets to tell me what I do, what I don't do.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell me these meds are gonna work. I've been on 10 other meds. You can't tell me
So
this.
that would fall in the willing category.
Yeah,
And your session may feel like a debate. It's always a debate.
sometimes.
Why are we always debating in here? How come we can't get together? But your job, there is to provide empathetic and reflective listening. We're gonna talk about reflective listening a lot, in a while too. Pre-contemplation, your staff tasks begin exploring the costs and benefits to see if a problem exists. And we're gonna do something, we're gonna take a look at something that's an exercise referred to as decisional balance later. You wanna try to raise awareness about the presence of a problem and or the possibility of change. When you're doing that, you're probably going to be able to provide factual information, and that's where if you've given paper and pencil assessment instruments and stuff like that, plus you've heard things that people have said and filed them away for later, well, now's later. You sort of bring it up, oh wait, I thought you said, or this assessment measured this way, and now you're saying that, I'm confused, So those can be empathetic ways to try to raise awareness about the presence of a problem and or the need for change. And so that's ways to try to go about establishing rapport. And as it says here again, you've heard me say already, ask permission and build trust. If you're presenting factual information and you look in the mirror at that consumer and that is just turning them off somehow, well, switch gears. And you might be doing that by trying to offer empathy and reflecting to them. We're going to talk about listening skills a little later. Active listening. Anybody know something about active listening? Okay.
Used to utilize it a lot.
I'm sorry?
Used to utilize it a lot.
Yeah. Raise doubts in the client or concerns about the behavior by doing this, exploring the meaning of the events that brought the person to you, eliciting the client's perception of the problem. Again, active listening, eliciting. That's one of the ways that you do that is by active listening. Active listening is sort of like journalism 101 back in the day when there were only newspapers. You taught to write a story. Answer the questions, who, what, when, where, why, and how. In active listening, you're always asking who, what, when, where. You kind of leave out why, because why is often a judgmental question or perceived as that, at least from a client who has those issues about autonomy and that sort of thing. But there's a lot of ways to change why questions into how or what questions. And all of those are designed to avoid one-word answers and I don't know. They're designed to elicit a paragraph of talking on the part of your consumer. So when you're eliciting the client's perception of the problem or that sort of thing, whenever I say elicit here, think about active listening. Listening to understand is another way to say it. Some of us listen too often just to quickly formulate our own answer to whatever's going on. Never mind your answer. Understand your consumer. And as I said just a little earlier too, providing personalized feedback about assessment findings. Oh, yeah, I skipped over. Offering factual information about the risk of target behavior. This is a good place to ask too. Do you mind if I tell you something about what the research says might be the consequences of this, that, or the other? If they say, yeah, I mind, I don't want to hear it. Okay, let it go. If they say, sure, yeah, hit me with it. Well, go ahead. But be sure it's factual. Be sure you know the facts. Be sure you know the research. Okay, oops. Then you can start exploring pros and cons of engaging in specific behaviors, doing decisional balances, as I said. You can help significant others intervene if you're at all involved with family, in a case with this consumer. You can examine discrepancies between the clients and their significant others' perceptions. And you can express concern and keep the door open. My door is always open for you. Okay, so with all of this, you know, you may be looking on at the stages of change in your intervention matching package. And so this is a lot of pre-contemplation. Once we get into contemplation, we're talking about someone who suddenly becomes aware a problem exists, right? So how long has this person been rolling down the hill in this snowball? But suddenly, here's the edge of the cliff. Oh my God, I better do something. So somehow they become aware, and they start seriously considering some kind of change. But they haven't made a commitment to that action yet. So contemplators start performing in their own mind, and this is a place you could help them, risk and reward analysis. Okay? This is a good place for decisional balance too. What you may hear from a client as they move to contemplation. You might hear a lot of yes, but, and that's okay. It may sound, that's ambivalence, right? It may sound like, yeah, I'm thinking about it, but, well, why but? It's ambivalence. I don't want to change yet, but I recognize something's not right here. And, you know, again, okay, so maybe there is a problem. It's going to be hard to change, though. If I do change, then lots of other things are going to change. I'll use the example of substance abusers here, but it may be apropos to some of your consumers as well, as they think of moving to independent living. Substance abusers. Who are their friends?
Other substance abusers.
Yeah, almost all of them. Are they true friends?
No.
No, they knock you out in a minute. If they got nothing and you got something. Okay? So, but they're looked at as friends because you're getting high together all the time. Or drunk together all the time. And I got no other friends who don't do this, because this is who we are. They go through grief and loss as they start to get sober. Because I got to get rid of these people, or I'm going to die. And they mourn the loss of those friends. They don't necessarily have the social skills to make new friends. I don't know about your consumers. Who are they moving away from? Maybe some of them. So your tasks, again, during contemplation, is to explore how behavior leads to or interferes with goals. Do your best to tip the scale toward the notion of change. Normalize the ambivalence. It's okay that you feel this and this. It's not either and, it's either or, it's both and. It happens to all of us. Elicit, again, find a way to ask questions that bring out self-motivational statements of their own intent and their commitment. You want to find a commitment from that client. If a client is making a commitment and after a couple of weeks you find that there's no progress towards that commitment or that goal, it was too big. Back up and make it smaller. Try to make several steps out of something you made one step. And normalize that too. It's okay. It's okay. We'll find another way to get it done. Let's back up and figure out where we go from here. Elicit ideas about the client's perceived self-efficacy and expectations about treatment. Again, readiness rulers, numbers. You can do readiness rulers multiple times during your work with the client. Oh, you're at a 3 today. A few weeks later. You're at a 6. How'd you go there? How'd you go from 3 to 6? That is awesome. That is awesome. Okay? All right. Summarize self-motivational statements. In the course of anything that's going on in one session or in a collection of recollections of several sessions that you have, start saying, you're doing really well. I remember you saying this, 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 and this. These are all about this. And you're there, and you're doing deposits in the bank. Okay. So, helping tip the balance toward change. Eliciting, weighing the pros and cons. Where am I with this? All right, eliciting and weighing the pros and cons of staying the same or changing. This is a decisional balance kind of thing. Again, and we're going to look at the decisional balance forms and instructions I gave you in the handout a little later. You want to examine the client's personal values in relation to change. And emphasize the client's free choice, responsibility, and self-efficacy for change. Oops. I want to go back because I have a note here. It's important to remember a few things. That the client is far from making a commitment to change at this stage. This is not a commitment yet, right? It's contemplation. I'm thinking about it. And they still may avoid taking any action. That's okay. Recognize it so that you're not frustrated by it. Recognize it as normal. A lot of people remain stuck there for a long time, but what you can do is go back and elicit information about the readiness ruler. Where are you now? Okay? There's a lot of grist for the mill there, especially if it's changed at all. And even if it's changed half a point, how'd you get there? Well, how can we go from here to the next half a point or point? What are your ideas?
What if they say, I don't know?
That's okay. You don't have to know. If you have an idea, guess what that is? An invitation. Right? Don't just consider it an invitation to dive in. This is your place to ask. Do you mind if? Can I make a suggestion? The answer is yes, but don't pout if the answer is no. Let it go. So you could be asking, what made you this number? How can you get to that number? What would it take for you to do a little more? And as Heather said, I don't know. Well, do you mind if you suggest it? What if we sort of take a look at blah, blah, blah. Okay. I want to talk about personal values for a second. Somewhere in this handout, what do I do with this handout? Here we go. Is personal values, you know what, I don't think I put it in your handouts. I didn't. It's a whole separate thing. And I didn't because it's a lot of paper and a lot of work. But I'll show you what it is. It's a personal values card sort. Every page, from beginning to end, has a value on it. Spirituality, grow and mature spiritually, stability. So what you would do with these is cut each one out. It's card sort. And then you put in the top how important it is to you. Important to, very important to me, not important. All kinds of different stuff. Acceptance, attractiveness, authority, etc. And the client takes each card and puts it under the category, important to me, very important to me, not important to me. What you're learning is the client's value system. All of us have values. I want to have a lot of friends. I want to be a good friend. That's a value. If you want to know what your client values, you can do something like this. I can't remember where this came from, but I used to use one with some kids that came off a website called The Therapist Aid. You may know some other websites like that where you could get stuff like this.
Do we make copies? And I was just.
Yeah, you may do that.
Thank you.
I was going to suggest you do that. You beat me. I have other websites I would use, but I will tell you that since I retired, stuff seems to be leaving my brain faster and faster every day. But
Good for you.
Yeah, good to be is the way I think. Boom, I don't do that anymore. What is this? Where was it?
Especially after working in a field like you did. It's...
Yeah. My head was cluttered.
Oh, yeah.
I'm happy to declutter.
We were talking about deprogramming from Medicaid billing when we came here.
Oh my God, don't get me started.
Yeah, yeah.
How about the collaborative? You guys do?
Like wildness.
Okay, so. So where are we now? Oh, I went back to personal values so we could do that, show you that. Because when you have a picture of the client's value system, you can sometimes use that to develop discrepancy. Remember discrepancy? How does doing this help you get to that? You said you valued this, right? You value your friendships. If you do this with your friend, how do you make that friend remain your friend? How do you make other friends who see you, how is this consistent or congruent? How does it work? I don't know, I've never thought of that. It doesn't. And guess what? They came to that realization themselves, in a way, that leads. Right? So that's what you're shooting for. That helps you emphasize the client's free choice, responsibility, and self-efficacy for change. All right, determination and preparation, which is stage 4, 3, whatever. Thank you. Keep me on track. Your consumer is intending to take action and may practice some of the behaviors necessary. It's like but the stage is kind of like a rehearsal for action. They will start to make intentions to change public. Reinforce that. That's a big deal. The more their friends, family, people know, the more help they can get, whether they want it or not, because people will say, let me help you with this, let me help you with that. Or, they're in this place where, to save face, you gotta stay on track. Mm-hmm. I said I was gonna do this, and the whole world knows. By God, I better do this. So, brainstorm. Brainstorm potential solutions. Anybody familiar with what brainstorming means? Brainstorming? Nothing's out of bounds.
Yep.
The kid says fly to the moon, you write down fly to the moon. Mm-hmm. Okay? I can't do this. Then you look at the pros and cons of all the options that you brainstorm. Okay? Then you pick the viable options. All right, flying to the moon is out. Can't happen. All right? You've already done the pros and cons. So list the top 3 or 4 options. Pick one. Pursue. P-E-R, P-U-R.
P-U-R.
Okay, 3 or 4 options. Pick one and pursue it. Evaluate how it's going. If there are multiple steps to this, halfway through it, evaluate. When you're finished, evaluate, if you decided to go to the end. If it's dying in your evaluation halfway through, or if you didn't see it dying until you got to the end and it blew up, either way, halfway through and it still seems to be working, continue. If it all blows up in your face, this is a do loop, like a reiteration, like in a computer program. Go back. This is why you did 3 or 4. Pick another one. Start again. Again, failure is not the end. Failure, an experiment that doesn't yield the results you wanted, is not a failure. It just gives you different information. So this problem-solving process is real formal. In fact, I have much prettier formal form that I used with the kids. Certain kids with ADHD. This formal process, this concrete piece of paper is way much better. Yeah, anyway, my chicken scratching is pretty illegible, but you get the idea.
I have it copied down if anyone needs to see it.
Okay. So when you're doing that, you're reviewing the change strategies, choosing one, you're developing a plan for implementation, you're helping the client commit to a useful plan, you're not underestimating ambivalence. It's okay, you normalize that. Increase the chances of success by focusing on what the person believes is possible, and clarify the client's own goals and strategies for change. You get some of their own goals in their own values. Card sort. They may not even think of it as a goal yet. And you go, well, look at that. That's pretty cool. So you're making a deposit, and then you go, how can we use this to solve this problem? Okay. Where are we? Okay. You're also, as you notice, offering a menu of options when you go through this list of options. And again, with permission, once the client's exhausted their own brain, ask, I got a couple other ideas, is it all right? And
Is this for the step? Is this for the contemplation stage? Or I mean, sorry, determination stage?
yes, yes it is. Negotiate the change plan or treatment plan. This is one of the things I really don't like about an ECFS treatment plan. Have you ever seen one of those? It's about 1 million pages long, and God save us, if a client, a child or family could ever get anything on this that would satisfy anyone at DCFS. They get no part of this. Right? So you're going to negotiate with your clientele, with your consumers. Because you're a team, not one of. In doing so, you're going to try to identify as many barriers as you can, and the options for removing them. And you're going to help your consumer elicit their social support. Make it public. And put the medicine in your eye, Mike. Okay, so why don't we just break for lunch now then too? And I'm hungry.
And don't forget to reset your alarm.
Got it, thank you. Change yet. It's just thought about it. The way the consumer may talk, you'll hear things like, I can't keep going on this way, time to make changes, I'll give it a try, it's time, I want to change, I'm going to start thinking about what I can do differently, etc. And the tasks for staff are to review change strategies, choose one and develop a plan for implementation. This is where we got off into the problem-solving process. Make sure you don't underestimate ambivalence. Increase the chances of success by focusing on what the person believes is possible. Clarify the consumer's own goals and strategies. That's kind of where we got into the values clarification thing too, wasn't it?
Yes.
Offer a menu of options for change or for treatment with the client. Yeah, I could. Explore it. Try to figure it out. Try to see what's going to happen. But this is a way of expanding the list of options so that your consumer knows and you know there are many options. Let's see if we start down a path and something works, great. If not, we get in a do loop, an iteration. Okay? We don't stick with things that don't work. Like NBA championship teams. Why would I do something that doesn't work? I used to tell kids that when I taught them to deep breathe or meditate. Championship teams and coaches do this. You know any teams and coaches that do stuff that don't work? I don't. Okay, so with that, you want to explore the expectations of the client's role, though, too. Yeah, you want to be equals. You don't want to be one up, one down, but you're going to have expectations they're going to do something. And you hope to have those expectations of themselves. They have expectations of you, that you're going to do something. And they hope that you have those same expectations of yourself. Okay. So then now we're moving into action. Action is sort of a translation of the expectations and role responsibilities. You'll do this and I'll do that. So in the action phase, this is where people modify their behaviors, look at their experiences and see where they might modify those, and look at their environment in order to overcome their problems. This is a stage that requires the biggest commitment of time and energy. The action stage of change. It's also kind of the place where your consumer can receive the greatest recognition. Here's a place to pour it on. If you've worked with family, you know, I said a little earlier, when the family comes in, teach them that 4-in-1 rule. Make bank deposits. This is the place where they're doing well. Make deposits as fast as you can. As fast as you can. That's where you're also building them this possibility that confrontation can be a goal. Not a style, not a piece, just a goal. So when something doesn't work, it's like, hey, wait a minute. Let's look at this. What did you do? And how did it go? Okay. So in the action phase, you may hear from the client, I'm making some changes and things seem to be working. Open door, reinforce, deposit. I'm acting and thinking different, not like the old me at all. Sometimes a deposit can look like, you sound like you're feeling really good about that. Can you tell me a little bit about what you did, how you did it, and what it felt like inside? Say, things are getting better. Oh, really? Tell me about it. What's getting better? Open-ended question. What's getting better? Have them tell you. It's been a while since I've started changing, and things are definitely getting better. So, what you're doing then is helping the consumer adhere to a change strategy. You're supporting a realistic view of the change through small steps, little steps. You're acknowledging difficulties for the client in the early stages of change. The thing to remember is that acting and thinking differently is evidence that motivational intervention is a cognitive behavioral intervention. As I said, remember, this plays well with other kinds of therapies. It's cognitive behavioral. All the early work is designed to help the client through cognitive restructuring. Now you're helping to apply new thinking to new behavior. And that should help change the way the client feels. Now there's intrinsic reward from inside. So you're hitting on all the 3 aspects of cognitive behavioral therapy triad. Think, feel, and act. And there's what you're doing to help make sure the consumer sees that you see, and you're rooting for them, and you're kind of still having those expectations that they're going to adhere to these strategies. If the part about supporting the realistic view of small steps, if something doesn't go exactly as planned or just misses the mark really badly, back up. The step may have been too big. Try to break that step into 2 or 3 more steps and start from the smallest one and go up again. Okay, and empathy is real easy to throw in when you're acknowledging difficulties in those early stages. Yeah, this is hard. This is hard. The only people who like change are wet babies. Remember that. Some of the things you can do is go back to their original numbers, the original ones on their readiness rulers, and ask them what they thought was going to happen, and then do a new readiness ruler and see where you're at now, and ask, how did you go from 2 to 6? That is awesome, reinforcing it. Reinforce the positive action and their ability to change. Now you start preparing for potential for relapse too, actually, and you're still in the action stage, imagine that. You're not even in the maintenance stage yet. But you start looking at relapse and planting the seed. You don't want to beat on that idea too much because you don't want to sort of demoralize them. But you do want to recognize and start planting the seed that relapse is part of the process. It is normal. So you do that by helping them identify high-risk situations through a functional analysis and developing appropriate coping strategies to overcome them. Okay? You always get in trouble when you're out with Johnny. Is Johnny someone you should be hanging with? You tell me. I'm not telling you to hang with. I don't even want you to answer me in here. It's a rhetorical question. Okay. You figure it out. By a guy named Ben Harper.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever hear his song, A Better Way?
Yeah.
Even us as professionals, there's a line in that song. Reality's sharp. It cuts like a knife. Everyone I know is in the fight of it. Again, you're going to work with your consumer to know that relapse is normal. One of the ways we know that relapse is normal is cigarette smoking. Anybody have any idea what the average number of attempts are
It's like
for
5
people
to
to
10.
finally successfully quit smoking? You're close.
5 to 10 or something like that.
You're close.
15, 14.
No, you're too high.
It's like 12.
You bracketed the numbers.
11.
It's about 7.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's
7 or 8.
That's with everything, isn't it?
no.
Well,
See,
With the line?
not necessarily everything, but it's a good estimate. It's a good estimate. It's going to take you a while to make change permanent. When you're talking about maintenance, though, what we're going to be looking for is about 6 steady months of consistent behavior. So that's important. The benchmark is 6 months of strong commitment and can help make the change. I hesitate to use the word permanent, but ongoing at least. Okay. What you hear from the client during this maintenance phase, hear or see, they adhere to the change strategies, they stick with it, they talk to you about it when they come to see you. They work actively to prevent relapse, and if you recall, we started talking about relapse all the way back in the pre-contemplation stages, near the end of the pre-contemplation stages, writing, again, another concrete plan, something on paper. They'll come in and talk to you about it's been hard work, but I don't want to go back to the old ways of doing things. Place to make a deposit. I'm so happy to hear you say that. The old ways weren't working for you, and you know it now. You can see it. I've changed a lot of things to make sure that this works. We knew it was going to take a lot of changes. We knew that some friends would drop by the wayside. Okay, and you did it anyway. You are awesome. It's worth hanging on to the change, is again something your consumers will express. I'll do what I have to do to make sure I don't stop. Your tasks continue to be helping the consumer identify and sample new reinforcers. I will say this here too, in doing that, teaching them how to use contingencies to accomplish things and goals by, if I finish this, I get to do that. You're teaching people to self-reward when you do that. And self-reward is a big, big deal for being an adult in this world. You want to be adulting? Learn how to reward yourself.
Now, just in going back to the substance abuse though, but isn't that in a sense promoting an active addict lifestyle in a sense? If you're not, let's say the person agrees to the self-rewarding aspect of it, but their reward is something different, or they want the reward to be the substance or whatever. Like, I go to work for these amount of times, but when I get this is what I'm going to do, but I'm still going to maintain my...
It's not a reward. It's actually a relapse.
But then
It's a
in the case
backtrack into a behavior you wanted to change.
in a sense, yes, I totally agree with that. But to this person though, that is the, I mean...
Start asking them, well, so how's that working for you?
Because it came with some negative things as
Yeah.
well
But
as
then it goes-
the reward.
What are you experiencing by doing that you were experiencing when you first came here? That's a question. You don't have to tell them
No, yeah.
you're effing up. Ask them. Ask them. Surely there'll be something. Support all those lifestyle changes, as we're talking about. Find any way you can to make a deposit in the bank account. Affirm their resolve and self-efficacy. When you acknowledge self-efficacy, you're reinforcing. There's a bank account deposit just for self-efficacy. Never mind the goal, you achieved it. You did this all by yourself. You rule. You are awesome. Okay? Develop the fire escape. Again, the plan, if the client resumes undesired behavior, that's the relapse plan. And help your client practice and use new coping strategies to avoid return to old behavior. That's different than a reinforcer. That's noticing that you're having an urge, you're having a trigger or a cue for old negative behavior. The minute your consumer notices that, you and your consumer want to say, what will you do instead? Sometimes it's as simple as, if it happens at a particular place, leave. Some are more complex. You got to sort through that with your consumer. Relapse planning sort of needs to include things like who to call, what to do and how to do it, where to go. Again, it's a who, what, when, where, why kind of thing. Why matters here because why is usually, well, my old behavior was to use. Or my old behavior was to punch my little brother in the nose. You know. So you don't want to do that anymore. It's too much trouble for you and everyone else. So, my old behavior, let's think about this. I don't know if this is apropos in an independent living situation, but my old behavior was to trash my room and everything in it. Well, whose stuff was that? Well, mine. And you trashed it. Yeah. Now you want to be an independent liver. Well, how come you? Well, mom and dad want me out too. Okay. What's going to happen if you trash your apartment? Oh. Maybe I don't want to do that. Well, how come? I don't think landlords like people to trash their apartments. I'm glad you said that. You just thought of that? Yeah. Good. Good point. You're right. So, that's part of the relapse planning. If this starts to be a temptation, what are you gonna do? Write it down what you're gonna do. I'm sorry, I just thought of that at the spur of the moment because I can't tell you how many kids after 45 years I have known who just trash the things that they own in their parents' home because they're angry. I got mad. Well, ADHD kids cannot control their emotion either. They just trash stuff. Oh.
Lisa?
Oh, I had a client who said, yeah, whenever I get angry, I just take a picture. And you're like, oh, well, that's different. Why do you do that? It covers up the whole wall.
Yeah, maybe during a different episode. Yeah, okay. All right, so you want to help the client practice and use new coping strategies to avoid the return to old behavior. Relapse planning needs to include who, what, when, where, how, why, and how. Answers to those questions. You want to maintain supportive contact with your client and review long-term goals with them on a regular basis. Now we're at relapse. The dreaded event has occurred. There's an explosion. All right, so you notice the client's response. There was an explosion. What went wrong? This is a tough one because you want to remember there may be 100 authority figures outside of your office and your work with this consumer who've already read him a riot act. Okay? Your job is not to read them the riot act. That's over, and that may damage your relationship with them. So you want to start with what went wrong. It's like I see teachers in school sometimes. Kid breaking a rule. I don't know. Too much noise in a quiet area. Get over there and sit down. First response. It's like, wait a minute. I know this stresses teachers. I know they're in the fight of their life. But maybe the first question needs to be, what are you doing? If it's quiet and calm like that, what are you doing? The kid might say, making too much noise. What's the rule? And you just sort of walk them through it. That's your role with this consumer right now. Walk through it. I'm not going to read your riot act. 10 people probably already done that with you. I want to know step by step what happened, how it happened, and I want you to know it because the next question is, how do we fix this? We cannot fix it till we know what went wrong. I'm not here to punish you or make you feel bad or read you a riot act. I'm here as part of your team to figure out what went wrong and what do we do now. So that's one of the things you're gonna do. Your task is to help them avoid discouragement, renew their commitment to change, and renew the process of contemplation, preparation, and action without becoming demoralized. Relapse will start the cycle over again. They start the client begins a dangerous emotional cycle. They feel rotten for doing a behavior that blocks their goal attainment. That triggers more bad behavior, and on and on and on. Focus on their strengths and successes. Talking about, look at what you've done so far. When you get thrown by a horse, get back on it. Not tomorrow, now. So, normalize it for them. This is kind of expected as anyone tries to change long-standing behavior. You're eventually going to get pulled into it again. That's okay. Find a way to figure out what happened and fix it. And that's why I'm here for you. Change is a real complex process, and what the consumer brings to that process and their motivation for change is important, but what you bring is also important. How you interact with that client, what you model, what you say, what you do, everything impacts that change process. And you have to remember that relapse is part of the change process. So now you're going to impact that. You're impacting the entire process with what you bring to them. Your style and your skills that you use is just a motivational interviewing matter of approach. It's not a technique, but a style. It's a facilitative way of relating to people. It's centered around avoiding resistance, resolving ambivalence, and inducing change. Rolnick once said that the practitioner would require all the skills and deftness of a dancer leading a partner through a sequence of movements, simultaneously leading and being led, keenly alert to subtle threats to the synchrony of the partnership. What you're hoping for is that. Right? You want to dance. It needs to feel like a smooth dance, not a wrestling match. Have you ever felt like that?
Yes.
How many hundreds of times? 5, 8, 12,000. Yeah, absolutely. Can't tell you how many times I felt like that. But sometimes it's just like, we're done for the day. I'll see you next week. I can't do this today. Yeah, you don't want it to feel like an altercation. So your MI style is, again, non-authoritarian. You leave the responsibility for the change with the client, but not forgetting how crucial the role is that you play. Your interaction style can either squish the balloon or find the answer. You want to be more evocative than coercive. Again, you want to evoke things from the client. That's where the ORs or the open-ended questions play a role. I'm missing something here. Oh, okay, here we go. So your style is more supportive than argumentative, and a style that allows timing to play a crucial role and places emphasis on why to change, not necessarily how. Okay, so where I'm at now is going back to some of the stuff that I gave you in this handout. The stuff that's right on the front, the stuff I said I put out of order.
Assumption?
Yeah.
Good. You just passed it. There you go.
Yeah, looking for the end of it. So this is directly from our friends at Samsung, right? This is their summary of motivational interviewing skills. And so what you'll notice here is just a repetition of a lot of things we've talked about already. And they do it in kind of a positive, negative way. Do this, don't do that. For instance, the first page, notice the top is ambivalence is normal. It can be resolved. It's a collaborative partnership. Be empathetic, supportive, direct arguing. Don't do it. It increases defensiveness and reduces the likelihood of change. So I don't want to really go through this page by page, a piece at a time. I just wanted you to have this because it's so big and quick and dirty. Just read it and remember it. Do your best with this. It's really good. So reflective listening is one of the best ways you can express empathy. 2. Okay. Okay, so your motivational interviewing goals. The goals of this style of interaction with people are for you to help develop discrepancies. Those discrepancies you notice in their speech and their actions, or in things they say to you today versus yesterday. You don't ignore those things, but you're not confrontational about them either. You develop them. Yesterday you said this and today you said that. I'm wondering, what does that mean to you? How does that relate to the value we uncovered the other day you put on friendship and family? What's it doing for you or not doing for you? So that's what it means to develop discrepancy. Don't confront. You said this yesterday and now you say this today. That's stupid. Say, what's this about? What does it mean in relation to these values? How's it getting to you to where you want to go? Or how's it keeping you from going where you want to go? Don't ignore discrepancy because you're concerned it's going to lead you to a dangerous place. Develop it, explore it, see what happens. See if you can resolve ambivalence. Find some way that you're not squeezing the balloon, but you allow the consumer to go in the direction they want to go. And if you think that it's not going to go well, pick them up when they fall on their nose. That's all. You want to increase their intrinsic motivation? Another reason to use, how did you feel when that happened? It felt good? Are you used to feeling good? No. You want to feel good more? Let's keep this up. It's an internal reward. It's an intrinsic reward. You like feeling good more than you like feeling bad. Increase their self-perception about their ability to change. Reward that self-efficacy. Look at that. You did that all by yourself. Encourage the consumer to present their own argument for change. My wife's about to leave me and I don't want that. Ooh. Maybe we could do something about that. Okay. So there's 5 basic principles for motivational interviewing. Express empathy, develop discrepancy, avoid arguing, roll with resistance, and support self-efficacy. What does roll with resistance mean? Any ideas when you read that? What do you think is going on?
Understand that it's natural to resist change.
Okay, yeah, that could be part of it. Probably the front part of it.
Don't chastise somebody if they're not ready to change. Like, just go with it.
Okay.
Look for a way to reword the resistance or the
Mirror.
Reframe it, it's a mirror.
It's
Yeah.
roll the roll with it, so just reframe it and give it back to them in a different.
Yeah. If they're resisting you, then you're looking at them in a mirror means, really, I could do something differently. Sometimes I talk with people about rolling with resistance with a physical model of being a lifeguard. I was a lifeguard for 12 years. And I also was certified to train other lifeguards and teach people swimming. And one of the things that you're taught in order to avoid a double drowning, if you have to swim out to get someone, first of all, you don't do that. Throw, row, go. But there's nothing to throw, there's no boat to row, you gotta swim out to get something, right? Double drownings happen when the victim is so panicked and whatever, they just lunge, grab onto you, anything that will pull you down so that they can come up, right? So what you're taught to do is the surface dive, go underwater, turn them around by your knees, you come up and you do a cross chest carry, right? Well, they're fighting you while you got them in the cross chest, like this, right? They're resisting. You roll with resistance. Rather than try to swim with this person back to shore or wherever you're trying to do to be safe, you're gonna waste a lot of energy, you can't do it. Well, you roll with resistance. I'm holding this person there fighting. Guess what? They're off. The only place they can fight is roll this way or roll that way. Roll with them. Roll with them. I'm not going to fight with you out here. We're both going to die. I'm going to wait till you're out of energy, and then I'm going to swim. It's the same thing. Find this metaphorical way you could sort of roll with them, which is, yeah, look at that mirror and say, what I just did didn't work. It just didn't work. What else can I do? How could I come up with this? I have listened to understand. I think I understood. I missed it. What did I miss? How can I go back?
I think a lot of times there's that place where the trust isn't quite there yet, and there's something they haven't shared with you yet.
Yeah.
It can be in that moment.
Yeah.
You think you did everything right, but you're missing a piece.
And that's not a state secret either. Sometimes. Sometimes we get in this mindset where I can't tell my client that I recognize they don't trust me. Well, why not? Maybe I missed something. Am I missing things that make it hard for you to trust me? Perhaps I am. Is there something you can tell me about how you're feeling in our interaction? can I get to the bottom of this? Can you get to the bottom of this for me? Can you tell me what I'm doing wrong? There's nothing wrong with asking them that. So that's one way to roll with resistance. Supporting self-efficacy. Okay, expressing empathy. Acceptance. Acceptance facilitates change. And reflective listening is crucial. And ambivalence is normal. Okay, so you're going to accept this client wherever they are. You're going to meet them where they're at. Now we know that's not Mickey D's. We know it's what stage of the change process do I see you in? And do you see yourself in the same place? Reflective listening. It's been said that there's no greater way to show respect and concern for another person than to listen to them. Greatest gift you could give them. One of the ways to show a person that you are listening is to reflect back to them what they've said. Now I have some handouts in there too, again, that I don't think we'll go through, but they're very concrete. Say this, do that. I wanted you to have stuff like that. That's I think that yeah. Reflective listening is listening to understand, not listening to formulate your response. When you're doing reflective listening, the questions you're asking are also open-ended questions, so that you get paragraphs of response to your questions instead of a sentence or I don't know or yes or no.
Can you go through some of those? I think reflective listening is a really good technique to do.
Okay, well, let me say one more thing about it. What was it? I think you picked it out of focus.
Sorry. You do have some pieces about open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections.
Yeah. I know. All right, so reflections can be simple or complex. Double-sided reflections are when you can take a look at ambivalence a little bit, and the other complex reflections, we're looking for the meaning behind the reflection. And I think what you're looking at there is an example of looking at what's behind the reflection is that somebody says, my wife nags, and you've been having enough conversation with them and understood them well enough to be able to say, the reflection is not necessarily a direct repetition of my wife nags, it's you don't think she has a reason to worry about your drinking, do you? But here's another thing about reflections too. When you feel stuck in a conversation, just repeat right back to the consumer, the thing they just said to you, word for word if you have to, paraphrase it a little if you have to. What happens when you do that is two things. The consumer has a chance to confirm that you are correct, that you heard, that they now know you heard them, and the consumer has the opportunity then to correct you if you missed it. You give them that shot, which is, again, a sign of respect. They are team members with you. They can correct you if you've blown it. What were you thinking of here for?
Some down and dirty techniques.
And out.
On reflective listening.
Okay. Yeah, this is the best page I have in here for that. If everybody's on that page. What you notice here is these are skills to help people get moving. And you'll notice each of them has an acronym. Right? The first letter for the acronym for the getting moving motivational interviewing skill is OARS. O-A-R-S. Okay? Always asking open-ended questions that can't be answered with a single word. Encouraging your client to talk. What would you like from treatment? Tell me about your drinking. Some people could talk for a month about those two things. Right? Affirmations. Those are things that express positive regard from you to your consumer. And caring. Statements which notice and appreciate a positive action. Statements which strengthen therapeutic alliance. You're a strong person, a real survivor. I appreciate your openness and honesty. Sometimes affirmations are as simple as sounds and body language too. Mm-hmm. Head nod. Mm-hmm. I'm with you. Yeah? Okay. I heard that. You just affirm what the consumer has to say. Reflections, again, statements which makes a guess about what a person means. The client statement is, using drugs is the only way I can cope. The simple reflection is, you use in order to deal with stress. That's a slight paraphrase. And as I said, sometimes it gets stuck. We'll just say it right back to them. Using is the only way you could go. Those are simple reflections. More complex reflections. You're afraid that you cannot, wait a minute. You're afraid that you can't handle life without using drugs. They reflect the feelings and paraphrase the client's words as opposed to the direct thing. And summaries. Statements which collect material, link things together, and draw together what's happened. So there's also been a kind of theorizing that what you can be doing best is about one summary for every 4 to 7 things your client has said. Can you summarize those 4 to 7 things in your next response to the client? But the example here is so far you've expressed concern about your children, getting a job, and finding a safer place to live. So those are quite likely 3 things this consumer has talked about over 10, 15 minutes. So those are your OARS skills. Get your boat in the water and use your oars. Really. All right, eliciting preparatory change talk. All right, this is for the preparation and determination stage of change. This is the darn thing. They're expressing a desire to change. You might ask, why do you want to make this change? And a client may use words like want, like, wish. I want to quit smoking. They're expressing an ability to change. How might you be able to change? Or you're asking about their ability to change. Again, readiness ruler stuff. Client uses words like, I can, I could, I think I could stay sober. Reasons to change. What's one good reason for making this change? They'll tell you. If I do this, then that will happen. If I take my medicine, then I'll feel better. Why do you need to make this change? How important is it, and why, on 0 to 10 scale? The consumer may use words like need, must, have to, go to, I gotta quit drinking. Eliciting, implementing change talk. Ask, what do you intend to do? This is cat. We have ors, darn, and cat. Darn cat. Client will make statements about an intention, a decision. Client uses words will, intend, ready, going to. I will quit smoking next week. Activation. Ask, what are you ready or willing to do? Client statements about willingness, readiness, preparation. I'm going to call for an appointment tomorrow. That's commitment. This is the cat. Taking steps. What have you already done? This is a question you can ask. Throwing away lighters. Attended intensive outpatient group. That's for quitting smoking. So these are motivational interviewing skills, and they have given us, you'd have to put each of these on a whole sheet of paper, in a copy machine.
I can do that after you've done.
I don't know how many pages there are here. Actually, this is really good. What I want to point out about this at the moment, though, is how these skills translate to every stage of change. You can't drop them at any stage of change, because, and the way they sort of punctuate that and illustrate that here is even at pre-contemplation. There's a line here above every grid, and it says, style, avoid arguments, roll with resistance, be empathetic, be respectful. Well, that's on pre-contemplation. Guess what? All the way through. All the way to relapse. It says, again, style. Avoid arguments, roll with resistance, be empathetic, be respectful. You never stop doing that. This is motivational style. That's what it's about. And this has some really good stuff about things to do that are sort of theoretical too, just suggesting you clarify and map information, great. But it also has some very interesting things in it that are really hard, concrete questions, things to ask your consumer. For instance, suppose that tonight after our meeting, you go home and fall asleep, and while you're sleeping, a miracle happens. The miracle is that the problems that you brought here today are solved, but you don't know the miracle has happened because you were asleep. When you wake up in the morning, what will some of the first things you will notice that will be different, that will tell you this miracle has happened? Some of you may recognize that from brief, what's it called? Insukinberg's brief something therapy. It's supposed to be something that's real fast, quick, and dirty, but they say they could manage change in clients in about 4 or 5 sessions. Why can't I come up with this whole name? Brief. I can come up with her name.
What was her name?
Insukinberg. I think Bonnie's on it back there too, in the Google.
Brief psychotherapy.
Well, there's more to the
Brief
name
therapy intervention.
than that.
I mean, that's the gist of it.
Yeah, it's just brief is the gist of it. That word.
That was kind of the whole goal for today, was to be able to give you some of these techniques that are down and dirty to help you elicit responses, to help move along your consumer with whatever goals that they're, and it doesn't matter. And you know what? You can use this with your family, you can use this with your partners, you can use this with your children, you can use use this with your church people, you can use this with everybody anywhere, it's so applicable.
Solution focused.
Solution focused.
Is that
Yeah,
what
that's it, solution focused. right there.
I'll
Yeah,
pull that up
but
too.
isn't it SBFT, solution-based focus there?
That's
too?
what PT.
Kevin,
Solution focus.
5
Yep,
minutes?
that's it.
Sure.
Are we taking?
Can we take
Yeah.
5 minutes?
Yeah, take 5.
Okay.
That's good. Make sure it's only 5 though, I think I'm starting to run a little bit behind.
Let me take him 5.
2:12.
Yeah. Okay. You're working at developing discrepancy. By developing awareness of consequences as something important. A discrepancy between current behavior and important goals will motivate change. But again, you have to have that conversation that's a safe conversation to have because of your communication skills and style, so that you and the consumer are feeling safe to have this conversation. The client should present the arguments for change. You may have to, through reflective listening and that sort of thing, again, inform them they just presented the argument. They may be a little unconscious to it. But again, doing that with empathy and concern, and as a member of the team, see if you can get that across to them. And develop that discrepancy and say, these two things don't fit. What's that about? What are we going to do with that? What do you want to do with that? Other questions you can ask are things like, how does that help? Does that help or hinder your progress towards this goal or that goal? Other strategies to develop discrepancy. Asking open-ended questions to elicit self-motivational statements. Reflect back selectively the self-motivational aspects of what the client states. Affirm and reinforce the client for making self-motivational statements. Anybody recognize that right now? We just went through it. There's one missing, the O. This is ORS. Open-ended, reflect back, affirm, well, they're out of order here. Open-ended, affirm, reflect back, OAR. S, what's missing here is summaries, actually. But reflecting back selectively means, this is one way for you to control the treatment direction and how to be directive in the Rogerian framework. It takes practice, and it's sometimes difficult because what you're doing is having a conversation and things are going on at light speed. But you have to start thinking and selecting, what do I want to reflect back? But you can never make a mistake if you feel like you're at a loss for words or just lost something. You can't make a mistake if you just reflect back, word for word, verbatim, what the consumer just said to you.
Can you take just a minute and talk about what you mean by Rogerian?
Well, Carl Rogers is a guy that we studied in undergraduate school back when I was a kid. Where there were dinosaurs on the planet, I think, still on there, right? Anyway, he is credited with the development of client-centered therapy.
This is what we do. This is why I'm bringing this
I was
up.
like, I know that
Okay.
name.
Yeah, 1950s stuff,
All right.
60s, yeah. I got to watch some video presentations of his in the 1970s when I was an undergraduate. That was still where the whole idea of the client-centered thing came up. Before, it was all kind of I don't know what you would call it.
Freud?
Freudian, well, yeah, exactly, it was just coming to the tip of my tongue. It's all Freudian, and Freud of course was a model of psychodynamics that I am the expert. And Rogers says, no, client-centered. Client knows something about themselves. Crying out loud. Listen to them. So, you know, that what Miller and Rolnick are saying is that, you know, you can be directive in a Rogerian framework, but you always got to do it with empathy, concern, and equality, not one up, one down.
That's the piece there, that was really, when we talk about being Rogerian and being open and meeting people where they are, and having that equality, no power differential in the relationship. That's so center philosophy, consumer-led driven services.
Yeah, I hope I've been saying that enough today. Okay. Yeah, and in that vein, avoiding arguments with your clients. An attempt to convince them of their discrepancies. You're just going to send the water to the other side of the balloon. Rolling with resistance. Again, resistance as your mirror, your opportunity to change direction. It's a signal to respond differently, and you don't directly oppose it. In fact, you might even want to talk about it for a little bit. Not as resistance, but the subject matter of whatever was in the sentence that was brought up. You want to avoid arguing for their change, and you want to present new perspectives are not invited yet, but they're not imposed either. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. New perspectives are invited, but they are not imposed where you roll with resistance. Remember, when I'm struggling with that drowner in the water, I'm not imposing stops, twisting. I'm just going with them. The client is the primary source in finding solutions. Exhaust whatever you're brainstorming, whatever they've got. The only time it's okay to inject something as a potential solution to a problem is if you ask permission and it's granted. Okay. So yeah, the mirror is that way of presenting the fact that you are in a different place than the client, and an invitation by the client for new perspectives. Ask permission. Do you mind, or would you like? All right. Supporting self-efficacy, the belief that one can change is an important motivator. It's also an important reinforcer. If you're noticing and telling your client you're noticing their self-efficacy, they feel good about that. Because they've probably been told for a long time in their lives, you can't do nothing right. Clients responsible for choosing and carrying out their personal change. The counselor's own belief in the person's ability to change becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You think this client's going to fail. You may not say that to them. Your body language might. Maybe your body language doesn't either. But somehow it comes across to the client that you have no faith in them. And it's predicted then that they will fail. So, you've got to find a way to believe in this client. Sometimes that's hard. But probably one of the issues that's most important here is, again, whatever you ask them to do right now, or whatever they've said they could do right now, is too big a step. Back it up, cut it into smaller pieces, and see if you can get it done. That reminds me, do you know Purva? Do you remember Purva?
Town hunter?
Yeah. She's from India. She was a member of my staff for a long time at CSRS. And there's an old Indian saying she taught me. The easiest way to eat the elephant in front of you is to cut him up in little pieces. A lot of times you want to try to think of that if a consumer isn't accomplishing a goal that you both thought was a good place to go. Maybe that elephant piece is still too big. Okay.
What do you do when you're in a situation with an elephant like that, though? I'm thinking about and there's like time constraints, and there's things that it's life, and it has to, you just gotta do it or you're gonna lose that opportunity.
You have to keep that in mind. And I think the only thing you can do is non-judgmentally and as best as possible, keep reminding the consumer, we only have this much time. I had to do that before my retirement, in the middle of things with people. I don't have much more time with you. And I had to say it session after session over, say, the last 6 months.
And I bet too, you have to, I really love this on so many levels about your belief in the consumer and how they can change or succeed or meet that goal. And sometimes just giving that little seed to somebody can really change their complete outlook about having somebody that believes in them. Because I believe a lot of people that by the time they get to us, except for maybe the younger ones, you know, they've been beaten up so badly.
Yeah.
I think that pertains to the younger ones as well. I can see it in them when Allison applauds them, or really they don't hear that often, and it just brightens them up big time.
Well, here's something else that might answer that question too, to some extent as well. Sometimes you have to back up and make smaller steps. Sometimes a consumer may realize that on their own while they're away from you in a session, and come back and tell you, well, I tried this, it didn't work, so I went here, tried this, this, and this, and got to here. Whatever. The whole idea here is support even the smallest attempt to change. Doesn't even have to be successful. You stuck your neck out there, you went for it, awesome. You may be running out of time, but you can also, in that reminding of running out of time, let them know that if I can't finish with you, someone else will. Something else will happen, and hopefully somebody can pick you up where you are.
I think it goes along with celebrate failures too.
Celebrate what?
Failures.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you may not have gotten the information you wanted, but you got some information
You still learn
out of
from
this
it.
experience, right?
I'm not sure if this fits in right here, but I'm feeling like it does. So when you're setting goals with the consumer, they've chosen their goals and you're supporting them in those goals. And you're in that action phase, and the consumer decides, this isn't what I thought it was, this is not the goal I want to be reaching for. But they don't want to disappoint you. Is there a place where you can kind of see that so you don't keep encouraging the wrong thing?
I think a couple of things may happen. You may be able to just read it in their body language, and that sort of thing. But you also may notice that sort of concrete benchmarks that you're moving towards, you're just not getting there.
That's
And-
where you're identifying the discrepancy too.
Right.
Develop-
You can identify that discrepancy. Then you can also talk with them, well, we made some plans that included other options. You wanna back up? You wanna shall we pick another one?
So if you're feeling that, then just go ahead and ask if they want to back up in that moment.
That's another good thing about this. Again, as a communication style, there aren't any state secrets here. There's not really stuff you gotta keep from your consumer. I could say that maybe I shouldn't make a blanket statement like that. Maybe something like that exists and will come along. But think about it carefully. If what you want is a good relationship, and it's a relationship that heals, there's hardly many state secrets. Go ahead and spit it out. I'll say this, as I reminded myself by just saying it, a relationship that heals. There's a great deal of research, both in the counseling, helping, case management fields, as well as education. Who are the kids learning from the most in school?
Other kids.
Other peers.
Teachers?
No?
Peers.
Which teachers? Which teachers are they learning the most from in school?
The humanities, history, English.
No. What does the teacher do?
PE.
No?
Is it the
Yeah.
teacher that wraps their knuckles when they can't do something?
Oh,
Or
you
is
mean-
it the teacher that comes up and says, well, what happened?
Oh, you mean a loving, supportive.
Kids learn the most from teachers they have a good relationship with.
Good leaders.
That's what MI is about in a therapeutic counseling communication skill. Our consumers do the best with helping professionals they have a good relationship with. Fine, you're a CBT expert, great. Can you relate to this client?
Right.
Can you carefront as opposed to confront? Have you gotten to that place with this consumer yet?
It's hard when you deal with a group of teenagers, it's hard to get
Tell me.
one-on-one in less than an hour.
Yeah.
Once a week.
Yeah. It's hard when you're being undercut at home too. Mom and dad ain't there. But the better your relation, it's the relationship that heals. It's not the therapy model, it's the relationship.
Do you
This
have
is
any-
designed to be relationship specific in building.
You've worked so much with families and kids. Do you have some nuggets that you could share with our fast track providers? Maybe it's not at this moment, but maybe later, or maybe at the end, or any sort of, encouraging words for them when they have a variety of children in a setting with varying disabilities and severities, and they're there to teach pre-vocational skills.
Well,
I know that's
that's a-
really putting you on the spot.
That's an
I'm
elephant that
asking
needs
for
to be
that.
really cut up a little bit.
Something to think about. Go on, maybe you could.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that comes to mind when you say that though. There are a ton of kids I worked with, I thought would be just fine if I could just go to the parent store and buy them better parents. But when they get to be 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and parents are nowhere to be seen in the counseling process, and in fact are undercutting me at home. They're not coming in, so we're not talking to their parents. I'm talking to the kid. I said, look kid, You're living in a crazy place. Your job right now is to figure out how to survive in this crazy place. So the first thing we're gonna do is examine your part in it. You do not have to attend every argument or fight you're invited to. Learn to turn and walk. Learn to get out. Learn to stay away. No extracurricular activities at school? I think you ought to be in 10. Don't go home until you have to. And when you have to, learn the delicate skill of turning and walking away. You get an invitation to a fight, you don't have to accept it. It's hard work. Really hard work. I'd get you a new parrot if I could. Can't do it.
And sometimes the teachers are burned out too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so, you know, just remember, go back to where I was here. People who do the best with helping professionals and teachers, etc., are those who have good relationships with those other people. The relationship heals. I wrote an undergraduate senior thesis on that topic, using a book from a guy at U of I can't think of his name at the moment. The title of the book was Relationship Therapy. You ever hear of relationship therapy before? No, it doesn't exist. But that was the whole focus. Develop your relationships and use good relationship skills. That's what this is. Okay. So now we're going to roll with resistance. We're not even going to attempt to counter the client's reluctance. Instead, we're going to acknowledge it as normal. We're going to accept it as normal. And rolling with resistance, if you look at it a bit more closely, it's a place where we get stuck a lot as professionals. We don't roll with it. We fight it. We accept the invitation to fight. Types of resistance that you'll see is arguing, challenging, discounting, hostility, interrupting, trying to take over the session, cutting off what you're trying to say to them or ask them, denying, blaming, disagreeing, excusing, minimizing, reluctance, ignoring, inattention, no response. They're on their watch. You know, the watch is as bad as a phone nowadays. Kids come into the counseling office at Terrier Care at the high school, playing with their phones. Put that away, please. You can't have that on in here. So that's another good example of don't come off with put that away. Would you put that away, please? It works much better. I guarantee. I absolutely guarantee. Okay, so more dealing with resistance, reflections. Oh, here's where I found this. I'll get right to it. An amplified reflection is when you sort of look for the reason behind a statement. And this amplified reflection is that, well, my wife nags. Well, the reflection is not my wife nags. Although, as I said, if you're stuck sometimes, just give it right back. But you've caught this, you think it through, and you amplify it with, she doesn't have a reason to worry, does she? You sort of short-circuited the client's I don't have a drinking problem thing. A double-sided reflection is, on the one hand, you like the effects of pot, but on the other, you worry about getting caught. Well, it's changed in this day and age a little, but, so amplified reflections are looking for the meaning behind the statement, and the double-sided reflection is about looking at ambivalence. Okay, I'm sorry. Good, I guess.
So, I know you said that you don't always have to accept the invitation to fight. What if, some people make sure that you get your way?
Yeah.
You're in your room, whatever.
I realized I didn't say anything about that, and just as you started talking, I thought, this is what this is gonna be about. You gotta teach them to just stand there.
Okay.
Just stand with a blank face, having no intention to respond whatsoever. Let them holler. Let them do whatever. Nod your head, yes, you're gonna do it. Turn around and don't do it, but whatever. It's kind of a role with resistance. Your parents are sending you a message from the galaxy. Okay. Yes, Dad. Yeah, Dad. I will, Dad. Bye, Dad. That was actually my strategy with my father. He and I weren't much fun together in my teen years. Okay. All right. Strategies for handling resistance. Shift the focus. Let's not worry about being called an alcoholic right now. Maybe we should just focus on the consequences. What happens when you do drink? Agreement with a twist. You're right. Alcohol is probably not the only thing affecting your marriage. Often that's true. Think about some of the things that people learn when they go to Al-Anon about how they back away from the fight and codependent behavior. But you're talking to the user. What you don't want to do is start a war. You're trying to develop a relationship with a person who's pretty hard to develop a relationship with. Okay. Emphasizing personal choice. Well, we've been talking about it for a little while. I'm not sure where you stand on this, but ultimately, it's you who's going to determine how this turns out. I often say, I would say to kids, you can come see me once a week until, forever. I don't go home with you, and I can't do this for you. So you can tell me this about it or that about it while we're in this room, but you've got to figure out whether you're going to make this work or not. I can't do it for you. You don't have much help from your folks. So let me try to break it down in as tiny steps as I can for you. And I want your help doing that, because you need to tell me what's realistic. And then please come back and tell me how well you did this past week. Okay, so reframing. I knew you could hold your liquor from the beginning. Now we're good old boys. We're past that. You could hold that liquor, right? But what I suspect is that it indicates a genetic vulnerability. So now you're coming at him with actual scientific facts and information. And their response might be, well, what do you mean by that? Well, did you know that medical science has discovered that there's a gene that the alcoholism is passed from family member to family member? Sometimes skips a generation, but Oh yeah? Really? Yeah. Something new to think about. The drama of change, relating to clients in ways they don't expect. I can't believe I can't come up with an example of this in my own head right now. I must have scared a million teenagers in my career. I don't know. You've probably done it yourselves, I'm sure. They're expecting some kind of very professional, polished move by you, and you just, blow them out of the water with something else.
Drug addiction might be.
If you're real careful about your humor, and you think, this, it doesn't even have to be a self-disclosure. It's just, I got this humorous answer for you.
Or a viewpoint about something.
Here's one, it's for my own kids, because they'll kill me if they ever hear this from me again. But I do it with kids in treatment too. I'm a big Yoda fan. And I would work with kids who, let's try this, let's do this step. You feeling good about it? Can you do it? Do we need to break it down smaller? No? You don't think so? Yeah, I'll try. And I go, try? There is no try. Do or do not. They're not expecting that. And it just kind of, I like that, to end that session that way, because they're going. Don't try it, do it. And by then I hope that I know the kid knows that if they come back and we're unable to, that's okay. It'll be all right, just tell me. That's all I can come up with right now. Therapeutic paradox. Maybe you can't live without smoking pot. Maybe I can. What does it mean if I can't? I don't know. What do you think? Well, I'm not sure. Well, what do you think it does to your lungs? Is it as bad as cigarette smoking? Well, it must be. What about drinking? Maybe I can live without drinking. Oh yeah. Well, what do you think might happen? I don't know. Well, what do you know about what it does to your liver? Oh yeah, it ruins it. Okay. So the therapeutic paradox has kind of elicited some conversation about how's this going to help you, how's this going to hurt you. Okay. Phase 1 strategies. Here's ORS. Open-ended questions, reflective listening, affirmations, summarizing, and eliciting self-motivational statements. Statements that recognize the problem. You can express concern, and you can acknowledge and affirm the intention to change, and you can be optimistic about that with the consumer. All of this is reinforcement too, if you make statements about that in your ORS skills. For consumers in pre-contemplation and contemplation, it's usually critical to use what Miller and Rolnick refer to as these phase 1 strategies. Questions that evoke self-motivational statements, problem recognition, what difficulties have you had in relation to this behavior? In other words, what happens when you drink? I went to a meeting once, and I guess this is a common expression among AA participants, but there was a speaker. I went to the speakers meeting because I knew this speaker and wanted to hear their shtick. But they stood up, "Hi, my name is, I'm an alcoholic. And the issue seems to be that I'm allergic to alcohol and illegal drugs. Every time I use them, I break out in handcuffs." So apparently that's a common piece of humor in the AA community or
That's
any
funny.
community? I don't know. I don't know for sure. Anyway, in what ways has this been a problem for you? And how does this interfere with who you want to be? There's a values question again that dips into values. Who do you want to be? What do you believe in? People in these stages for phase 1 skills, pre-contemplation, contemplation, our goal is to move toward a commitment to change. Just move toward it, no matter how small the steps, and acknowledge completion of a step. If they keep having trouble getting to where they want to go, or where you hope they would go, even if you haven't voiced it yet, so maybe we need smaller steps. Don't try to go faster than one stage at a time. That is, move to pre-contemplation, to contemplation, not action. Don't try to skip over contemplation with a pre-contemplator. You can't go to action. You need to start thinking about it first. Okay. Your expression of concern. You can express concern, but you can also ask a lot of questions that elicit concern from them about themselves. What about your behavior causes you concern? What worries you about your use? What can you imagine happening to you if you continue this way? And I'm thinking about independent living too. Again, maybe somebody moving from parents or family out to by themselves again. What is it that they might have been doing? And they have some concern or fear about living either by themselves or whatever. Well, is there anything you do, as opposed to what behavior causes you concern? Is there anything that you do that causes you concern about this being the right choice for you? What worries you about living by yourself? What can you imagine happening?
Disability, but this is a disorder of the eye, and maybe something.
To your consumer is, if you decide to change, what do you think would work for you? This is where we start building lists, the brainstorming. Okay. What makes you think you can change, even if you decided to? Eliciting self-efficacy statements. Trying to find those. As soon as they pop out, if the answer is a self-efficacious statement, reinforce the living heck out of it. Okay. What do you see in yourself in terms of ability that might be encouraging if you decided to change? Again, you can do this. All right. All right, phase 2, strengthening the commitment to change. The goal here shifts from building motivation to strengthening the commitment. Things to look out for. Underestimating ambivalence. It is still there and always will be. So listen for those double-sided sentences or statements or ideas in a paragraph in your conversation. Over-prescription, asking them to do more than they can do. Again, cut the elephant up into small enough pieces. Insufficient direction. You need to be directive with your clients sometimes, and that doesn't sound real Rogerian, client-centered. It's how you do it, it counts. If you can do it in a way that the ball is in their court once you've done it, then you got it. You'll find that it's a little easier and actually a little more appropriate to be more directive with kids than adults. But with adults, you have to stay out of that authoritarian gap of, I'm a grown-up now, don't tell me what to do. You get some of that from older teenagers, but so yeah, what you could see there then is these are very fine lines to walk. It's not easy. Again, this is where reality sharp cuts like a knife. We're in the fight of our lives. Say this right, don't mess up. You know, that's probably going on in the back of your head sometimes. Don't worry about it though. We're just like anyone else. If you think you messed something up, just come back, analyze it. That's what your supervision sessions are for with your supervisors too. Talk about it, analyze it. What are you going to do next time? Because you are in a human services business. And one way or another, people are going to ask you to do the same thing again. Not literally, verbally, but behaviorally, some other way. It's like they're going to ask you to repeat the same intervention. And you're going to be ready for it next time. Because you stopped to analyze it, pick through it, figure it out. How did I get on that? That's not even anything written here. Okay.
It's a wonderful thing.
How do I know when a client is ready to change? Okay, here's the signs you're going to see. Decreased resistance. The client stops arguing, interrupting, denying, or objecting. Decreased questions about the problem. The client seems to have enough information. It's an indicator. They don't really need more information from you. Resolve. The client appears to have reached this resolution. I need to change. This is in my best interest. Furthermore, if you've done your job, they may be saying to themselves, I made the decision myself. That's good. That's fine. Don't let your ego into this. That I did this for this client. No. Let them have it. You know you did something. Let them have it. Signs of readiness, more of them. Self-motivational statements. Statements reflecting recognition, concern, openness to change, and optimism. Increased questions about the change. That indicates the client wants to know what they can do about the problem. Envisioning. They start talking about how life could be after the change. Or they discuss advantages of the change. experimenting. They actually begin to try different change approaches. And come back and report that to you. Strategies for strengthening their commitment. Recapitulation. Go over it again with them. Summarize their own perceptions of the problem as you've heard it over a length of time. Sum up the ambivalence you've seen and how hard it's been for them to get past that. Give a review of objective evidence. Things like paper and pencil assessments, the readiness rulers, etc. Give a restatement of client offerings of wanting, or intending, or planning to change. Just sort of paraphrase their own words to them. Make your own assessment of their situation known, probably should say that, especially when it matches the client's perception. Key questions to get the client talking and thinking about change. What do you think you'll do? What does all this mean about your use? Or, as I've begun to say here for your purposes, your behavior at school, or moving to your own place? What do you think has to change? What could you do? What are your options? It sounds like things can't stay the same. What can you do? How would you like things to turn out for yourself? Of the things that concern you, what are the most important reasons to change? What are things that do concern you about changing? And what would be the benefits of changing? Let me take a look at something. Yeah, so more key questions. For strengthening commitment and negotiating a treatment plan, setting goals. How would you like things to be different? What is it you would like to see change? If you were completely successful in accomplishing what you want, what would be different? Okay, so you can help strengthen commitment by helping consider change options, presenting a menu of options. Again, that is something that you should be doing with your consumer, and once the consumer seems to have run dry in adding things to the menu, ask permission to get some of your ideas on there. Arriving at a plan, the most important reasons why I want to change should drive the plan. And my main goals for myself in making a change are whatever they are. When you arrive at a plan, you're hoping you hear from your consumer. I plan to do these things in order to reach my goal. The first steps that I plan to take in changing are, other people could help me change in these ways. Again, social support is important and making it public. If other people could help you make these changes in these ways, that's not something that you as a helping professional want left laying on the floor in your office when you're done. There may be a goal that has to be stated or written somewhere. Ask so-and-so to do such and such. And then you'll be checking on that the next time they come in. How'd that go? I hope that my plan will have these positive results. It's good to have a list of those too, because you could be checking that list the next time they come in. How did that go? Have any of these been achieved? Good, that's awesome. What do you have left to go? You can strengthen commitment by eliciting commitment. Again, enhanced by making it public. The more your consumer verbalizes the plan to others, the more commitment is strengthened. There's a couple of things that happen there. Getting help and support from others is a very real benefit, but also your consumer does not want to find themselves in a position of not just letting themselves down, but now letting anyone else down. Anybody that's been in their corner rooting for them for decades, maybe. So getting it out there is really, really important. Commitment is also reflected in action. All the more reason to be reinforcing, making that deposit to the bank account. Any action, no matter how small. Making even a small financial investment, like buying a book, may help to confirm the plan. Perhaps they said something about getting a particular self-help book in the last session. Did you do it? Yeah. Awesome. That's great. How much of it have you read? Just a few pages so far. Well, that's okay. Just keep going. In all of this, we're summarizing the point, which is to arrive at a clear plan, get the client's verbal decision to follow it and follow through, initiate immediate steps to implement it, and strengthening commitment is a conduit to action because there's no clear line between contemplation and action. People will be thinking about action, they're contemplating change, and they will then move to action in little steps. They'll start little pieces while the rest of them is still thinking in contemplation stage about next steps and next steps. And that's okay, let them straddle that line, but reinforce anything they take action on. When they're in that later stage of contemplation, they may even try other options that perhaps weren't their initial effort at making this change, but they're going to add on to what they're doing because they want to enhance it even further. That's another reason piece of them is still in the contemplation stage. During initial action stages, people remain ambivalent and contemplative. Contemplative? Which way do you say that?
Contemplative.
Okay. This is all the reason for what I was showing you on that one spiral bound thing. I gave you a copy. It says in every stage, you know, don't argue, road with blah, blah, blah. It says the same thing. Every relationship skill needs to be carried through every place. And can't be dropped even at successful completion. If this client completes something successfully, moves completely through the program, maybe is finished and discharged, whatever you call that here, but they come back in a year to see you, be sure that you're still doing the same things and reinforcing that person. That will probably have something to do with how that person learns to relate to other people as well. Finally, the last slide. How'd we do? Not bad, 3:30. Okay. This is where I said to somebody, I will tell you where the scariest place is earlier. The gray area between commitment and action is a good reminder that MI strategies are not to be abandoned at any stage. The style is a way of being with clients that can characterize the counseling process from start to finish. What people fear is not necessarily leaving what they're trying to change, and not necessarily where they want to go. The scariest place is in the middle, where there's nothing. It's been called the space between the trapezes, right? You're swinging, you're leaping. I let go. I don't have a trapeze. There's the other one. Am I going to make it? Just scares the bejeebies out of us. All of us. All of us. So, it's a rough road. And this style of intervention has been developed to sort of acknowledge the support of the research that the best relationships create the best healing and learning. Don't be afraid to use any counseling mode or model or anything you want. That's fine. Just treat people, talk to people, relate to people this way. And you're going to be very successful. And so are your consumers. Right? Have the best relationship with them, and everybody does well. Any more questions, thoughts, feelings?